The epidemic of gun violence in the United States continues day after day and was particularly bad over the 4th of July holiday, especially in regard to mass shootings. And that's what I want to talk about here. This is from The Guardian. 4th of July overshadowed by 16 mass shootings across the United States. And then the article continues, from the nation's capital to Fort Worth, Texas, from Florin, California in the west to the Bronx, New York in the east, the 4th of July long weekend in the United States was overshadowed by 16 mass shootings in which 15 people were killed and nearly 100 injured. The Gun Violence Archive, an authoritative database on gun violence in America, calculated the grim tally using its definition of a mass shooting as an incident in which 4 or more people, excluding the shooter, are killed or injured by firearms. Just tragedy after tragedy. And when looking at just how many mass shootings we've had so far this year, Forbes reported shortly before the 4th of July, USC's record number of mass shootings halfway through 2023. As the July 4th weekend approaches, mass shootings in the United States have reached a record high for the mid-year point. There have been more than 330 mass shootings so far this year, according to data collected by the Gun Violence Archive. Horrifying. And before I discuss further, the District Attorney of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner, delivered remarks after a mass shooting that took place in Philadelphia where 5 people were killed, and had some remarks that were right on point. Take a look at this.
It is disgusting, the lack of proper gun legislation that we have in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I cannot agree more heartily with the mayor. It is disgusting that you can go to New Jersey and find a whole list of reasonable gun regulation that we don't have, that you can go to Delaware and there's almost as long a list of reasonable gun legislation that we don't have. Some of that legislation might have made a difference here. And it is time for everybody in our legislature, including the ones who would like to walk around with an AR-15 lapel pin, it is time for every one of them to face the voters. And if they're not going to do something, then the voters are going to have to vote them out, because that's what that lapel pin means. It means vote me out. I am against you, and I am against your safety. And a lot of us have had enough of it. I can tell you I certainly have had enough of it.
Absolutely. I have as well. All of you, I'm sure, have. Nothing is going to change until it is changed, until change is made. And right now, not only is the GOP not fighting for the proper legislation and policies, but they're actively fighting against, standing in the way of those very policy positions, those very policies that should be implemented to make our communities safer, both state by state and state legislatures and federally. And every time the refrain from Republicans is, well, it's about the mental health, it's not about the guns. It's about, in the case of school shootings specifically, they'll say school security or whatever it might be. And those things also, yes, should be addressed and invested in, but you can't ignore the gun. And it's not a coincidence that the United States has more guns and they're way less regulated than every other developed country, and we have more gun violence than every other developed country. We've gone through the facts, state by state, their policies, that effect on gun violence, country by country in the past. It's undeniable. And still, we have so many people denying the facts so that they can stand for the incorrect policies and stand against the correct policies. And even though it can feel hopeless being an advocate for the proper policies, we do have to continue. It's the only thing we can do when we see tragedy after tragedy. What we can do is continue, as hopeless as it can feel sometimes, because of how long change has been called for without much of it. But we do have to call for change, and we have to fight for change. And as Larry Krasner there pointed out, we have to vote out the politicians that don't support the proper policies and get those who do. And that's Republicans. We have to get more common sense legislation supporting politicians into power. And that is disproportionately, largely, almost entirely coming from the Democratic Party. But just so many tragedies. It's stunning.